We begin in the Ugandan capital of Kampala, where 12 African heads of state of the International Conference of the Great Lakes region are gathering. The summit is geared at resolving the resurgent violence in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. President Paul Kagame of Rwanda and South Sudan Salva Kiir are some of the leaders who have already arrived for the eagerly anticipated talks. CCTV's Isabel Nakiria has more.
Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has called this emergency meeting. He's worried about the recent flare-up in fighting in eastern DRC and its potential to destabilize the entire region. Already, Rwanda has sent tanks to its border with the DRC. That's amid continued allegations that Kigali has been backing the Congolese rebels, the M23. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame is already at the summit venue, so too South Sudanese President Salva Kiir. Ahead of the meeting, the region's foreign ministers resolved that peace talks must resume within 3 days of this summit and should end 14 days later. Uganda's Permanent Secretary James Mugume says the conflict must stop for talks to go ahead. There has been a lull in the fighting in recent days. Both sides say they want to see what happens at this summit. Isabel Nakiria, CCTV, Kampala.
Let's now go over to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, which of course is taking center stage in the discussions in Kampala. CCTV's Jane Kyo is live from Goma. She gives us now more perspectives on what exactly is going on. Jane, so peace talks are set to begin in Kampala. Have the guns in Goma fallen silent?
Well, Penina, it's all quiet here in Goma and at the front lines. At least that's what we are hearing. All parties, the government and the M23 rebels, looking and waiting for the outcome of those talks in Kampala. Here in Goma, life appears to be going on normally. In fact, it's been quiet for the last 1 week or so. We had the last explosion last Wednesday. But even as the life goes on normally, this is one place where we keep saying that the absence of violence does not necessarily mean peace. So even as people carry on with their duties, they're still very much apprehensive. There's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen next. And there's a lot of frustration about this crisis, Penina. And many here want it resolved once and for all.
And speaking of that, Jane, uncertainty and people wanting this crisis to be resolved, is there some sense of hope that perhaps now the peace talks in Uganda will yield some fruit?
Apparently not, Penina. Many here are skeptical about those talks in Kampala. Those we've spoken to say that they are just a waste of time, and that's because these talks have been going on and on, if not in Kampala, in Kenya or somewhere else, and they've not come up with any tangible or concrete solution. And the residents here say, you know what, that's just a waste of time. In fact, what has raised their hopes of a solution is the ongoing military offensive by the UN Special Brigade that has been backing the Congolese soldiers in fighting the M23 rebels. Now, that is what residents say has raised their hopes of a solution to this particular crisis. Of course, the Congolese soldiers have gained substantive ground against the rebels. The rebels are now about 30 kilometers away from Goma. So, Penina, while the talks continue in Kampala, not many here are pinning their hopes on those talks for a solution. But then again, this is one very, very complex crisis, Penina.
Complex indeed, Jane. Thanks very much for joining us. Jane Kyo live for us from Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Well, let's come back to Kenya now, where Kenyan lawmakers will debate a motion to withdraw from the International Criminal Court on Thursday. The court warned that withdrawal will have little effect on the cases of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto. Ruto is scheduled to appear at the Hague Court this coming Tuesday to face charges of crimes against humanity. President Kenyatta is due to appear in November on similar charges facing Ruto. The two leaders have denied the charges, which stem from violence that broke out after a disputed presidential election in 2007. Lawmakers proposing the move say they want to protect Kenya's sovereignty. Well, let's now get more from CCTV's Robert Nagila joining us, of course, from the presence of Parliament. Robert, we've seen different sides of Parliament pulling in different directions. What kind of debate are we looking forward to this afternoon?
Well, thank you, Penina. You're right. We're outside Parliament buildings now. This debate is expected to take place in the chambers behind me. Now, we expect the proceedings to begin at about 2:30 local time. That's about an hour and a half from now. And we expect them to take about 4 hours. Now, we believe that they will first, a motion will be tabled seeking to withdraw Kenya from the ICC. Now, that motion will be tabled by the majority leader, who's Aden Duale. Now, after that, they will then debate that motion, after which we expect them to take a vote on it. Now, we expect it to be very vibrant. This is an eagerly awaited bill here in Kenya, and there appears to be a lot of support on the government coalition side to see this through. So we do expect it to be very vibrant, and we're eagerly awaiting the result of that debate. However, most people here believe that it's an already foretold conclusion, and they believe that it will be passed and that Kenya will then begin the process of pulling away from the ICC, Penina.
So, Robert, then, supposing, like you said, the bill is passed, what effect is it likely to have on the ongoing ICC cases against President Kenyatta and his deputy?
Well, Penina, I spoke to Aden Duale yesterday, and he was very clear. He said that members of parliament here in Kenya are aware that this motion that they're tabling today will not have any effect on the cases of Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, William Ruto. However, he says that it is important because this case touches on the sovereignty of Kenya itself. He says these are two leaders who are overwhelmingly voted by overwhelmingly by Kenyans, and unfortunately, they have a case before them in a foreign court, and he says that this is not in the interest of Kenya itself. Now, he says that they expect both leaders to argue their cases, to put their defense before the courts when the session begins for the deputy president on Monday, and for the president later in the month as well. So he says that it's very clear, everyone's aware that this will not have any particular effect on the current cases. He, however, says that once this is through, it's then going to take at least a year for that process to be concluded, for Kenya to pull out of the ICC itself. However, the larger impact is going to be around the continent. A lot of observers we've spoken to in the last couple of days telling us that they then believe that this will embolden other African countries who have been on record as saying that they believe that this court is a political court against Africa in particular, and they expect to see other countries then following Kenya's move to pull out of the ICC as well. Penina?
All right, Robert, thanks very much for those insights. Robert Nagila joining us from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. It's coming up to 10 minutes into the hour. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a break coming up. Egypt court closes down 4 television stations accusing them of inciting violence. And new order, Mali's new leader promises to unite divided nation. Welcome back. Let's take a look at some top news from around the continent. Security officials say a car bombing has targeted the convoy of Egypt's interior minister in Cairo's Nasser City district. They say the minister, Mohammed Ibrahim, who is in charge of the country's police force, has survived that attack. It is not clear whether Thursday's late morning explosion was caused by a suicide car bombing or an explosives-laden car detonated by remote control. Nasser City is a stronghold of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamist group from which ousted President Mohamed Morsi hails. It was also the site of a sit-in protest by his supporters that was stormed by police on August 14th, killing hundreds. Meanwhile, in Gabon, officials in charge of a corruption investigation there have revealed the existence of about 3,000 fake civil servants who receive monthly government salaries despite holding no official positions. The all-rich Central African nation's bloated civil service employs about 70,000 workers and serves a population of 1.5 million. While some adventurous visitors have been taking the chance to see humpback whales breeding off the coast of this Central African country. The massive mammals can weigh up to 36 tons, and groups of female whales are ever more numerous during the mating season. Authorities say the increase is due to a drop in the number of fishing boats. Let's take it back to Egypt. An Egyptian court has ordered the closure of 4 television stations: Al Jazeera Egypt, the Jordanian Al Yarmouk, the Palestinian Al Quds, and the Muslim Brotherhood's Channel 25. All these channels have been accused of inciting violence after the oust of former President Mohamed Morsi. The decision has been met with mixed reactions in Egypt, as CCTV's Yasser Hakim reports.
The court has ordered the 4 TV channels mentioned here to be closed and their transmission shut down. The verdict should be put into immediate effect by the relevant authorities.
The court found that the affected TV channels were responsible for inciting violence, sabotage, plans to create civil chaos, and sectarian divisions within the society.
The
authorities used legal means to shut off the pro-Morsi channels, but they have to know in this age of technology, it is impossible to close down any opposition voices. There is the internet, they can transmit through foreign satellites and more. You cannot shut the media anymore.
Critics argue that the clampdown is proof of the government's infringement of freedom of speech, while others opine that the government had little choice.
Of course, they should be closed down. These channels created hatred and divisions within us, the people. Its sheikhs called for attacking the army, and anyone who opposes Morsi was described as a Satan. They divided us. They wanted civil war in the country.
Statements such as this one, attributed to one Hani al-Sibai, led to his imprisonment for inciting violence and hatred in society.
The army soldiers are sons of Satan, and anyone who supports them is supporting evil and should be stopped by all means, including using force.
The government insists it has nothing to do with the closure of Al Jazeera Egypt and the 3 other Islamist channels. It is simply enforcing a court order. During the Mubarak era, opposition and Islamic channels were targeted by his security apparatus. While during the Muslim Brotherhood's rule, several liberal channels and journals were forced to shut down. And the same now. It seems that in spite of the political changes, media will always be targeted by whoever is in power. Yasser Hakim for CCTV, Cairo.
Ibrahim Boubacar Keita pledged on Wednesday to unite Mali and end endemic corruption. The president was sworn in to lead the deeply divided West African nation's emergence from months of political crisis and conflict. Mali's constitutional court confirmed Keita's landslide victory in the August 11th presidential runoff against former minister Soumaïla Cissé. The election campaigns focused on law, order and ending the culture of impunity in public office. The 68-year-old is charged with leading the country out of a 17-month political crisis sparked by a military coup.
No one is or will be above the law. It will apply equally to all. I'll put an end to impunity, to the special privileges which are responsible for the perversion of judicial and state institutions. The restoration of the authority of the state will happen in tandem with the tireless fight against the corruption which holds back our ability to leave behind economic and social underdevelopment.
Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan is due to fly into Nairobi, Kenya's capital, this afternoon. He'll be here for a 3-day state visit. Trade's high on the agenda, but the countries are seeking to repair relations as well. CCTV's Kofam Ranger has more.
Goodluck Jonathan and his Kenyan host Uhuru Kenyatta have plenty to talk about. After all, they lead the economic powerhouses in their regions, and both men are keen for more investment and cooperation, especially in areas such as trade and tourism. But there's another trickier issue to talk about. Kenyatta has vowed to deport all foreign drug traffickers, and many Nigerians are being caught in the net. That, of course, is causing friction. Just recently, Nigerian authorities detained 11 Kenyan officials for 3 weeks after they accompanied a deported Nigerian businessman back to Lagos. Now, analysts say that has dented relations between Nairobi and Abuja. Jonathan and Kenyatta, therefore, would be keen to ensure that they present a united and friendly relationship. Kofa Mrenje, CCTV, Nairobi, Kenya.
Let's now get a snapshot of what's happening in the bees world. Rama is here with the latest.